always wanted to own their own business, but they don't want to be in business by themselves. And they love this brand. And so they roll over their 401k, they leverage their retirement, and they get in business for themselves, only to get punched in the face by managing hourly employees and all the other fun that comes with business ownership. And they start scrambling around to try to collect tools and solutions and solve pain points. And all of that eventually just leads up to more drag on their business. And then they can't scale it. They can't get out of it because they got stuff everywhere. And anyways, it's this spiral.
The Business Owner's Journey. I'm Nick Berry, and I've got real business owners telling their real stories, sharing their real lessons and strategies so you don't have to figure it all out on your own. So Matt Goebel founded Woven, which is his SaaS platform to manage multi-unit businesses and franchisee operations. He's owned multiple businesses. He's in the tech space, one of the best problem solvers that I know. But I wanted to have him on a guest because I knew that he was going to be able to share so much insight into the thought processes and considerations that have to be made when you're trying to start and scale a business, particularly a SaaS business. He killed it. He shares why his previous startup would or wouldn't make it today, how he decided that he was going to bootstrap Woven initially, and then when he knew that it was time for him to switch gears and raise money, how he's fighting off his instincts and balancing growth and product development, how he's honed in on who Woven is truly meant to serve, and then how he's going to manage that pivot. This could be the highest earned secrets per minute ratio of all of my episodes. And I apologize, my audio is a bit muffled in some places, but it doesn't matter. Matt was on fire, and I just stayed out of his way. I think you're going to enjoy it.
Reader's Digest it for us. The Matt Goebel business ownership, entrepreneurial background.
Yeah, for sure. So coming out of college, graduating Purdue, I got my first job was in consulting, but from a very young age, there's this itch that only an entrepreneur will understand. It's in your brain where it's just like you just are unsatisfied working for somebody, and for no bad reason other than just your drive, your desire, your whatever that is for you. I don't know how to explain it. There was always that itch there from a very young age. And so coming out of Purdue, I got my first job, was in it for 4 years. Great company, great mentors, great people. But honestly, just again, had that itch. And in 2009, at the peak or whatever, like Lehman Brothers just collapsed. It was like the financial crisis, and I had this nice cushy job. And I told my parents, and I was like, I'm quitting. Like, I'm resigning, and I have this 6-week contract to do some consulting work, and I'm going to go out on my own and hang my own shingle. And so I did, and turned that 6-week contract into an 18-month contract when honestly I spent that 18 months just figuring out how to run a business, because I knew how to deliver work.
Yeah.
I knew my skill, my profession, my trade, right? I had
Was
no
that
idea how to run a
Lumarc, or
business.
was that a different business at that time?
Yeah, it was the consulting company. It was under a different name at the time, that morphed into Lumarc Solutions.
Okay.
But yeah, it essentially was Lumarc Solutions, just not a name. But from there grew, went through a transaction where I merged that first consulting company. I had grown it to about 3 people, small, merged with another small firm here in Indianapolis, was in that partnership for about 3 years. Learned a lot through that partnership process, learned a whole nother angle of business, which is about having partners, and the different ways that can be good and bad. Exited that in 2015. That's when Lumarc Solutions was reborn. I basically took my consulting practice back out of that other company, ran, and then technically it still exists, running it through today. Things changed again though in 2016 because my wife and I became multi-unit franchisees. Actually before that, we actually had a failed startup. So you'll always remember about these failed ones, but we actually had a failed startup in a business to consumer, a B2C SaaS play for wedding planning called plantheday.com. We actually helped about 900 people plan their weddings using our software at the low price of probably like $1 million investment. So that was again, a very deep, painful learning experience. But it upped my software consulting, my whole development team really upped our game because we had been building a lot of business software up until that point, like line of business software for employees within a company. And to build software for a consumer, an end consumer, totally different game. So we learned a lot. The next venture after that with my wife and I was a franchise concept called Massage Heights here in Indianapolis. We have 3 locations. We opened up between 2017 and 2019. And it was that moment where, having been in the consulting field for a long time, built a lot of software, just happened to be in the franchising space, got niched into it along the way through referrals, and then did some work with franchisors at a strategy consulting level, kind of fractional CIO work. Became a multi-unit franchisee. So in the franchising world specifically, I'd kind of seen it from the supplier side, the franchisor side, the franchisee operation side. And that was the catalyst for creating Woven. So then in 2017, we laid the first bit of code in early January for Woven. And that is the B2B SaaS product software system that is deployed in a number of different brands. It is an operations workforce management platform specifically built for franchising, multi-unit operations. So it helps franchisors connect to franchisees and franchisees down to their frontline employees in a way that isn't fragmented or fractured, covering all of their people, operations, and facility management in one place. So you don't have like 6 different logins and a dozen different PDF and Google Sheets floating around that you have to keep track of. It's just it's a single point to run your day-to-day operations. No matter if you're at the ZOR level, the franchisee level, or in the frontline employee level. So we've been doing that since 2017. It's been growing, going strong, and here we are. So
and that's the thing.
That's probably the longer Reader's Digest version, but it's been a journey. It's been a learning journey along the way.
Now looking back, can you see like what all makes sense? This is what it was all done with this in mind.
Yeah, it's perfectly planned, right? Like I knew I needed all these experiences in this specific order in order to achieve where I'm at now, in order to get to the next step, which I'm perfectly aware of. It's business ownership, like life, is all about rolling with the opportunities, the failures, the everything that comes your way, trying to seek and figure out what you can take from it and learn from it and just move forward. Because there's no point in any other way, right? You can't go change the course. So
if you're trying to get somewhere, that's really the only way you can approach it.
For sure.
You kind of for anybody listening. So Matt we met, I believe it may have been late 2016 or it was in 2017, but Matt was referred to us by someone who is a really reliable referrer. Like if he says this person's good, then I know they're good. So I called Matt, and we were looking for somebody. We needed our own custom software platform built, and had just had an awful time finding someone who does that, who could communicate with us. And admittedly, like a lot of that probably is on us, but they needed to elicit the information they needed in a way that they could put it to use and create what we needed. And Matt was able to do that. And it was a great experience. Like I learned a lot watching him, how he handled us, how he problem solved, how he delivered his product. And it was also really refreshing to meet someone in that space who was just as advertised and as reliable. And so I got to see Matt go through his startup with Massage Heights and getting Woven off the ground and dealing with us as a customer who he managed to make very happy. So like that's a testament, one, to who he is as a business owner and as a leader. But like I've seen firsthand what he's talking about, the ability to take every experience in and gain what you can gain from it, and use whatever it'll give you to move closer to your goal. And now, I mean, we'll talk more about Woven, but like I know he's got a killer product, because one of the things that I learned about him is he is a hell of a problem solver. I think I'm a good problem solver, but good now I realize it's good in a way that like I'm really good at ping pong. If you're a recreational ping pong player, like I can take care of business. But I've played with people who are professional ping pong players, and that's another level of, but like they don't play ping pong, they play table tennis. So I think I'm a good problem solver. And then to see Matt, the way that he diagnosed what we were looking for, what we were trying to get our heads around, and like there's another level of like problem solver person out there. So that was impressive to see, but it also is why it's not an accident that he delivered the product that he delivered. Like he made sure he knew exactly what the problem we were trying to solve was. And he tactfully didn't give a shit what we thought it should be solved. He kind of like, no, you don't want to do it that way. You want to do it this way. Right. And that's probably something that you learn to do over time, as a consultant. I got to see him go through all this stuff. Right. So he is that guy. So now that I built you up, let's go back to plan the day. Could you make plan the day work now?
Tear me down a little bit. Bring back plan the day. Yeah, yes, yeah, no, probably not. And again, all in hindsight, right? I think one of my key takeaways and learnings from the plan the day adventure was around the fact that there are different types of businesses that require different types of activities to drive them to success. And in the case, just to cut to the core of it, right? In the case of a B2C company, when you need, in the tech space at least, I'll at least preface this in the tech space, it probably does apply outside of just the tech space as well. But when you need to gain awareness and market penetration in the consumer marketplace, especially one that's super competitive, like say the wedding industry, where there's like this one little event of time when that bride is in this mode and then she's gone. She, 50% of them come back, but they don't do the same thing. But the issue, right, is scale, right? It is, if you're a startup, it is raising a boatload of money and going as wide and as deep as you possibly can in terms of marketing, market penetration, branding, being everywhere, right? Like it is a game of scale, that you have to go play. And to be perfectly honest, and this is back in 2013, 2014, we were building Plan the Day. So in that day, right, all the solutions, the technology, the offerings to help plan a wedding were just atrocious. And so we thought, well, we can build a better widget. We can build something better. And to be perfectly honest, I think we did. Like even in hindsight, I do believe that we had a better product. The problem is that we were too small and it required to play a game where you go raise a ton of money and be everywhere all the time. And you have to go big and just risk it all to like try to hit a grand slam, and anything less, right? You're just cheating yourself. And so that's what we learned and took away from it. And to be perfectly honest, also learned that like that type of business isn't for me. There's a lot of people out there that have done it. There's even more people out there that have tried that and failed. Right. But the point is that kind of just raise a ton of money on a promise, take a bunch of money and like hope for the best kind of model doesn't align with my core. Right. I struggle with the, raising money or taking money when I don't have a more definitive kind of line to the result. So we have since raised money with Woven, so much as the scale at which you have to do it and how quickly you have to do it on so little data and like crazy made up J projection charts of our revenue growth. It just, I learned that wasn't for me. So in hindsight, could we go build an even better product than what's out there? I don't know what's out there today. I haven't been in the wedding game for a long time now, thankfully. I am sure we could build product, but honestly, it's not the product. we could have had a subpar product. And if we had the marketing behind us, we would have done better if we had the dollars. And so learn really the finance and scale and fundraising side of a startup through that venture. Also learned a lot about building software for consumers, as I mentioned earlier, which we were able to carry that experience directly forward into other things we did. But yeah.
So so you mentioned you didn't have that like clear path, right? That vision for like, this is what we're going to get to. But now with Woven, you do, because this is where you have raised some money, right? Tell me, what is that clear path? What does it look like for Woven in comparison to like when you in a scenario when you didn't have it, now you do?
The real generic contrast was that with Plan the Day, we were making what I would call hobbyist money. We had some paying customers. We planned several hundred weddings. There was like 900 around less or so. However, when they're only like $10 or whatever it was, $4 a month or something like that, I even forget the price model, but it doesn't add up to a lot, right? It's hobbyist money, and you have to go to large scale to make it work. With Woven, I was fortunate enough that, I had already spent a good portion of a decade at that point building a consulting practice. And so in a roundabout way, I spent a decade first preparing for Woven. And if we're going to joke about the perfectly laid out plan, and was fortunate enough that I had a good set of clients that had, built up over time. You guys, I was working with you at the time, and essentially was able to bootstrap, what's called bootstrap in the tech space world, where you essentially don't raise any money and you live out of your own revenue. You live out of your own the founder's own personal finances. So I basically funded Woven for the first 5 years. That taught us a lot of lessons as well as constrained our growth, but I think in a healthy way, to the point where we were building a business. And this is my personal opinion, but I do believe that a lot of the tech ecosystem for startups is very different than every other startup ecosystem out there that I've been around and been part of, right? Specifically work a lot with like franchisors that are starting that's a startup, right? An emerging franchisee starting their business. That's a startup, although be it slightly different, but I've had friends that have started businesses that were not in the tech space. And there's something odd about the tech space, which is about like raising a boatload of money, diluting yourself down, and then you basically build this like sales and marketing organization that you hope to sell quickly enough before you run out of money, and then worry about the product and the support later. It's a very broad generalization that any tech person listening to this could probably argue with and pick apart. But in short, that's my sarcastic summation of the stereotypes on our industry. And again, like I had mentioned, that wasn't for me, that I didn't have a desire to dilute myself and have other people tell me how to serve this industry that I'd already been serving for 10 years. Right. And again, Woven came out of this 10-year journey of building software in the space and then living, right? Like we were our own users. We were our first users of Woven. And so, for us, it made more sense to bootstrap, grow. And by the time we actually raised money, we had a proven model, right? I forget exactly where we were. We were north of $1 million a year in recurring annual revenue. We were a sustainable business. We were a real business, meaning that Woven was never going to go away, right? We had sustainability. We were supporting ourselves and growing on our own revenue. We had year over year growth. We had expansion growth within our customers. We had very low churn rates. We were taking care of our customers. We were getting referrals. We had product market fit. We had dialed in all these things. And so two things. One, as just again, everybody's different and everybody has different tolerances for different things. For me to go out and ask somebody to write me $100,000 check, I needed to sleep well at night, right? And for me to sleep well, I had to go out and make that ask, knowing that I wasn't going to lose that money. Mm-hmm. I may not 20x it or be some unicorn story, but I'm not going to lose their money, right?
Yeah. You
And
had enough
so,
velocity that the risk was way different than
correct.
the typical. Yeah.
So I had deleveraged enough risk through bootstrapping it and getting it to that point where I could sleep with myself, or I could live with myself and sleep at night. And at the same time, by deleveraging a lot of that risk out, I actually conserved a lot of my equity in the company, right? As a business owner, equity is the most precious and important thing. You can pay people and you can make money and lose money and do all kinds of stuff, but you can only give equity away once. And there's only 100% of it, right? And every bit that goes out the door, you really can rarely ever get that back. So, for me, it was a combination of I slept better at night, knowing that I wasn't selling some smoke and dreams. I was selling a real business on a real path with real results that we were heading towards. Clearly, still risk in there because it's a business and anything can happen, but deleverage that risk as much as I could. And then at the same time, I did not have to dilute myself as much because when you raise on just an idea, you have to give up a lot of the company because those people bringing their money to the table technically have everything, right? They hold all the cards because you're just an idea. And when they're investing in a real business with revenue, it's definitely more advantageous for the owner at that point, right? Because less risk, you have to, you're in a different position, I guess.
So when you were going through this process from day one with the bootstrapping, did you do it with raising money? Did you do all those things with raising money in mind? Or did you look up and say, hey, we've actually primed ourselves for this. It might be a good idea. Let's look at raising some money.
Yeah, I think a combination. I had been for probably over a year or two at that point, entertaining the idea. Again, as we were dialing things in and we were getting our numbers were becoming more predictable, more reliable. We were, growing at a steady rate. We were stabilizing and maturing as a business. The question then became, okay, we don't have to figure stuff out as much as we just need to go faster, right? So it's one thing to try to go buy somebody's fuel and fire starter. It's a whole other thing to have a fire and then just get more fuel to pour on it, make the fire go bigger. And that's where we were starting to get. And so, yes, it was time to go quicker than we were able to go out of our own revenue. Right. And so that made sense to me. And at the same time, Woven is being built to be sold someday. It's worth mentioning. I don't really focus on the consulting company anymore. It's kind of on its sunsetting phase. While it was a very lucrative business and I loved it. I was passionate about it, was decent at it. The end of the day, you can never retire from that. Like January 1 rolls around and you got to go sell all the same amount of hours and keep your team busy and support their families and support your own family. And there's no stability to it in that sense. There's a lot out there on like feasts and famines of consulting practices, professional services that don't have some kind of base built into them. So it was kind of twofold in the sense that like Woven and the transition to Woven not only was to solve industry problems that I had seen repeatedly, but it was also a pivot for me as a business owner to something that eventually created equity and something that I could sell, right? Value at the end of the journey, not just value during the journey. And so, yes, raising money was always part of the eventual plan. Maybe not for money's sake, but it was for partnership, right? Like having the right partners that have equal stake in a exit outcome is a good thing to have, right? Because those people are going to be able to make introductions and eventually help with that exit.
So if I'm understanding what you're saying there, you're not just raising money, you're kind of attaching yourself to some people in your network, and aligning those outcomes together so you can get more out of those people in your network.
there's many reasons to raise money. I don't think it's always just for the money. I mean, sometimes it is. Sometimes you face your financial cliff and to keep the business alive, you got to raise money. I think there's other avenues as well. Could be strategic partnership related, eventual exit partnerships, alignments with other near peers in the industry. There's other reasons. But yeah, for us, it was a combination of growth capital along with, strengthening relationships, I guess, for the eventual exit.
Now you're shifting more into growth mode. Am I that fair statement? But
Yeah.
I'm taking that along with what you were saying earlier about like, I think you seem to be doing a good job of staying balanced between like product and growth. Is that intentional or is that just how you're wired? And if it's intentional, how you doing that?
Yeah. I think as you mentioned earlier, I appreciate the compliments. I mean, if I'm good at anything in this life from like a God-given capability, I would put problem solving pretty high up there. I do. It's both this intersection of passion, capability, experience, great mentors coming out of college, that just culminated in this particular skill. And so that in a product, so Woven being a product company, right? I'm no longer consulting and hearing all these problems from my clients and then building something to solve it. Woven being a product company, I do still get to do that because we listen to our customers all the time. And that is an immediate like feedback loop that goes back into the product. But then I also have the product to manage, with all the existing customer base, and there's the whole our customer success team and trainings. And there's a lot more to it now than just like, yeah, I can go build you a point solution to do that. Great. So for me, the product and keeping Woven in that, I'll be honest, probably our product gets more attention than any other SaaS company, B2B SaaS company at our stage. A traditional B2B SaaS company, once they built their product and they're selling it, they don't iterate on it or invest in it to the level we do, until they get later on, until they're hitting that like $4 or $5 million ARR run rate. Then you start seeing a heavier product investment. We have never stopped investing in our product, from day one. So, and I think that's just in part due to my DNA, right? Like I've transitioned my entire software company into Woven. We have the team, we have the capabilities. We love solving problems. We love hearing about problems and solving problems. And so
You're a user,
it's a,
right? You've got this in your own units.
Yeah, for sure. And then we've gone, mid to even enterprise level businesses now. So you have these organizations that are $500 million a year orgs that are 200 plus locations. And, they rely on Woven to run their day to day across 26 different states and 3,000 hourly frontline employees. And, hearing their problems, which are nothing like the problems I have with like my 3 locations, and then trying to balance like Woven is a solution that works for both it's a good problem. It's a fun problem to try to solve. But it is one that we are perpetually adding to in the terms of features and capabilities. And, so it's fun. Yeah. I think that balancing the growth and the product, to be perfectly honest, growth is getting a lot more attention this year. We say only, but we grew by 74% last year over year. And which was pretty solid for this B2B SaaS company in 2023. However, like we came off raising money and we wanted to go faster. So it's still a big focus for us right now. So it's not getting the balance is probably shifting a little more into the growth favor, right? And by that, probably it's like 50-50 now, not just like 60-70% product and, 30% growth mindset. But it's worked out for us, right? Year over year since we started, over 90% of our new sales comes from referrals, which does keep our acquisition costs down. So in a way, it works, right? But yeah.
So what are you doing for growth now? Whatever you're willing to share, like what the current and future look like?
it's evolving. I'll answer the question, like, no problem. So much as like the one thing I've learned, because I am a technologist, right? I mean, when we work together, consulting, I don't write code anymore, and I haven't written code in a long, long time. But architecting solutions, hearing out business problems, bringing technology to bear to solve those problems, bring efficiencies, productivity, accountability, blah, blah, blah. That's my skill set. I am comfortable and at home there. Uh, you put me in the marketing world, in the realm of marketing or sales, and it's, I can do a consultative sale because again, I'm solving problems. I'm helping, right? It's very natural for me, but normal generic type sales or marketing type stuff isn't my strong suit. And so we've definitely, as we've grown and brought in different people to try to run those functions of Woven, we've learned a lot, right? And part of the raise we did in late 2022 was to bring in those functions. And, we hired for experience. So for the first time in Woven's history, instead of hiring for, like the culture, value fit, the industry experience of franchising and multi-unit operations, we actually hired for, have you scaled and been part of a rocket ship SaaS company before? Check. Yes, hired. And honestly, there was nothing wrong with those people that we hired so much as like ultimately not a fit at Woven and what we were doing. Right. There was still a very different DNA from going and working at a VC funded, splashing a lot of cash around, and then a very capitally conscious bootstrapped business that just happened to raise money, but isn't going to change its DNA overnight. And so, while we did deploy quite a bit in all your traditional digital marketing and did a bunch of learning last year, ultimately never really found the thing that was like the repeatable. We had some hits here and there. We had some wins for sure. So much as like still finding like, what is the formula? What's the repeatable machine that we can reliably put effort, money, resources into to get a predictable outcome at the end, if that makes sense. So long story short, again, nothing wrong with the people that we hired so much as just at the end of the day, right? There's a lot to be said about alignment on certain cultural fit things. Capitally conscious versus just, having boatloads of money are two different ways to approach problems, in other things. But regardless, that team turned over and we are now rebuilding the team. We have a great, fractional CMO. She'll probably listen to this. I'd love to hire her. But she runs her own, professional services fractional CMO practice. She does an amazing job at it.
Yes, she does.
So
your fit is good. I'm glad you brought her up because your fit is good.
Yeah, I know our content's great. So, we started there. We've been working together for 6 months now, and she's really helped us she comes out of the franchising industry. She knows the base we talk to and serve. She's a great fit for Woven and who we are. And it's just working, right? And we're incrementally building on that, right? So we're just, I guess all this to say, and we just did recently hire a VP of sales, and we're starting to put together that we hired a brand success manager that has dual functional role between, our customer success team and sales within select brands. So yes, this year has been all about rebuilding, from what we learned. And we're definitely rebuilding with the knowledge and what we learned out of last year, in who we hire, how we hire, and how we're going about rebuilding this sales and marketing. So referrals remain one of our top lead generations, and so it's about right now we have been focused heavily on how to bring better systems and processes to formalizing that more versus just getting lucky and somebody thought of you and, it refers you to their friend. I'll try to be more top of mind. But yeah, so and we're still running, the usual plays, emails and digital marketing stuff, LinkedIn, but like, we have evolution still to go in those areas for sure.
Who is your main audience? Like, who are you targeting? What
Yeah.
size, like number of units, really is what I'm looking for.
Yeah. So I would say our ICP, or ideal client profile, ideal customer profile, however you're looking at it, is those businesses, multi-unit businesses that are 20 locations or up, in the service side of the industry. So gym, fitness, salon, spa, car washes, things like that. Retail even. There's a whole niche area. I mean, I don't even know how many hundreds of different franchise concepts there are out there. It's remarkable. Every time I turn around and I learn, like, you can franchise that, like, that's awesome. But you can franchise just about anything. The franchising model itself is wonderful in how it's applied, but, topic for a later discussion. So there's a lot of underserved segments, industry segments within the franchising space that just don't get any love or attention. And that's kind of where we've niched out and found like our sweet spot, at that, 20-ish location count above. So think the larger, small size to mid-size and above organizations.
What is it about what that changes at that threshold that moves them into your ICP?
Yeah. It's such a great question because in various forms, we get this question a lot. The answer is probably two or threefold. I first have to say we built Woven for ourselves. We are well below that threshold, right? At 3 locations, we actually, one of my, call it altruistic kind of like things I wanted to do with starting Woven was like, we build all this really cool software to help these really big businesses because they can afford it, to bring efficiencies to their already massive scale and efficiency, right? But the mom and pops, they don't have that luxury. They're not going to go spend $250,000 to eke out, right, a little bit more efficiency. They just can't afford it. So one of the things we were starting Woven was like, listen, these problems are pretty consistent, right? We should bring a solution to bear that helps all these mom and pops, right? It helps all these people that retire from their professional job and they've always wanted to own their own business, but they don't want to be in business by themselves and they love this brand. And so they roll over their 401k, they leverage their retirement and they get in business for themselves only to get punched in the face by managing hourly employees and all the other fun that comes with business ownership. And they start scrambling around to try to collect tools and solutions and solve pain points. And all of that eventually just leads up to more drag on their business. And then they can't scale it. They can't get out of it because they got stuff everywhere. And anyways, it's this spiral. It's a spiral effect, right? And all of a sudden they're not running a business. They own their job. Right. And so, I saw that repeatedly. And so one of my, I guess, I don't know, it's like feel good motivations was to help the small guy, right? Small person, small lady. There was no, thought in my mind at that time to go help enterprise level customers again. And so what I learned though quickly, back to the ICP question of why 20 and above, we learned very quickly in the first probably year to 2 years of Woven, when we started monetizing it and selling it, was that we were able to attract those small players in droves. I think we had a few hundred of them pretty quickly. And we were getting killed with customer support. One thing that we, I guess, relearned was that really, really small businesses, there's this odd thing, and it's true in consulting as well, but in every segment I've ever been in professionally, is that bigger businesses typically have less demand on your support. They're typically more mature, established. They know what they want. They're not like zigzagging. They're fairly emotions taken out of things. And it's just kind of like, this is what it is. This is what we need to do. This is what we're going to do. We're going to do this for probably a couple of years. We might change it, but we'll probably just keep doing what we're going to do. And that is one level of support versus a small business owner that's literally waking up every day stressing out about how to pay rent or make payroll, right? And like how they thrash around. And again, I've been on both sides. I can sympathize. And at the same time, when you're trying to scale a business and you're only making $50 a month off this customer and they're blowing up your support team 3 times a day, asking questions and wanting advice and more or less consulting them on like how to run their business, It's just not sustainable, right?
Yeah.
Like people are, like most businesses, Woven's biggest expense. And so we needed to find a way to still offer a crazy high level of support, which is one of, again, not to talk about Woven, but like that's the other big tenet of us is coming out of industry. Franchisees are terrible at implementing software. They're really great at getting enamored with it and seeing how sexy it is and buying it. They're great at that. And then they're really, really bad at their organizational change to actually implement the software and get the value from it. And for my consulting practice, I can't tell you the number of times I advised on software decisions and only to see 12 months later, that same customer was going back through a software selection again because, well, it sucks. It didn't work for us and blah, 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 blah. And if you really, really scratched, like barely any in some cases, you would find out that like it was just never implemented. They just never used it. And I think it's a failure on both parts, right? Software companies are notorious for overselling, under delivering, where it's like, great, I got your credit card and your 12-month contract. Good luck. And they're out, right? And you can, that guy that was pestering you and you couldn't get away from, now you can't get anybody to respond to you at that company. Right. On the flip side, franchisors, right? Like in franchisees, they're putting out fires. They're operating their business. They don't have time to implement software. So starting Woven, sorry, this is a tangent, but starting Woven, right? The other thing I wanted to do is not only consolidate software, bring efficiencies, productivity, all that other stuff that the platform and the product does, but I wanted to bring a layer and a level of service, both implementation and ongoing customer success focus, that comes from our consulting practice, right? Where we actually listen and we actually figure out like, where's the value in your business to adopt this and how can we get there and how do we have to retrain your team? And you had turnover at a key position. Great. Let's retrain that person so they know how to use it and get value from it. And a true commitment to that is unseen in any other of our competitors or any, honestly, SaaS company I've dealt with before.
It's something that we saw firsthand too, right? You've learned over time how to gain buy-in from people at levels that like you got the hooks in. And I say it like that tongue in cheek, like that's how it should be done, right? You are ensuring, well as it could be done, the likelihood of a successful use of your product.
100%. I think the B2B SaaS industry accepts a level of churn that honestly would be unacceptable for us here. I mean, last year we were sub 2% churn rate for the year. I'm not gonna knock on some wood here, but like we don't lose customers, right? And it's not like this is some black art voodoo magic, right? It's just a relentless pursuit that your customers are getting value from your product. And it's just relentless, right? And if you are delivering value, surprisingly, businesses keep using you. It's weird, but really that's what it boils down to. We have relationships. We work hard for our customers. We add value to their business, and that loop just feeds itself. And so that's why we made the move upstream, right? To deliver that level of experience, we need a certain size customer. And so we started having to pivot upstream, mid-market enterprise customers in order to balance our books, so to speak. So eventually would love to find a way to help everyone in this space because I do believe there's still a lot of value. And we do still have a lot of small customers, legacy customers. So there's still a desire to eventually try to solve that first problem of helping the mom and pops out there. But as of right now, we don't have a model to support that economically.
Yeah. So when you find prospects like that, are you passing them along or just passing on working with them, or?
We have implemented account minimums, which was our kind of polite way because I didn't feel good talking to somebody, knowing that we could solve their problems and then telling them to take a hike that we weren't going to help them. That just seemed incredibly rude. So yeah, the way we solved that was account minimums. So we essentially, we know what our like minimum level of revenue for an account needs to be to deliver the level of support we want to deliver. And, this actually came out of an evolution as well, because to solve our problem originally was like, we're just going to have two classes of customer. We're going to have the customer we don't support. We're going to have the customer we support a ton based on who's paying us what. That was not only is that like borderline unethical in my opinion, because I don't know. I just feel like if you're going to buy something, you should get the support anyways. But like on the other side of it, it was hell for my internal team because every time somebody would reach out for help, they were like, do I help this person? Like, how far do I help this person? Like it wasn't worth it. Right. So we actually, that only lasted like 30 days, 60 days. And then we immediately reversed all that. And we said, everybody, no matter how big they are, whatever customer, if they got through the front door, which was me at the time, they got through the front door and they're part of our family. It's the same. I don't care how big or small they are or what they're paying us. They deserve the same level of support from us. So that's where we are now. And we just have to control the front door a little bit tighter. When you're smaller, it's definitely harder to generate revenue. Once you achieve a certain size, it becomes a little easier.
Yeah.
Still not easy, but
I think
easy.
What's really cool is getting to hear you talk about the level of clarity that you have that helps you kind of set your boundaries and figure out like eye on the prize. When you're talking about balancing growth or whatnot and your role in doing these things, and Matt Goebel's exit plan can't be fulfilled with Matt Goebel doing sales. Like, you know that now, right?
No, it's definitely, it's a humbling experience, as a business owner when when you achieve success in the business you start from scratch, where you go from this irreplaceable multiplier for the business. You are this multiplying force that literally the business would die and cease to exist without, to one day coming to the conclusion or realizing that you're a bottleneck for so many aspects of the business's growth. In coming to that realization and conclusion and admitting it, it's like going through therapy because you're on this entrepreneurial high of just like, I got this. I can do everything. I can wear every hat in the organization and sure, right? Like and to a level, right? To a certain degree. And then all of a sudden, Matt's personal abilities, right, only go so high, but the business keeps going, right? Like if the rest of it's successful. And it's really now, and especially since we raised money in these last year and a half or so, has been about identifying smarter people, better people than I am and just setting them free, right? There's plenty of much smarter, more successful business people than me have talked about and written a ton about this, but like, it's so true, right? It is just about getting out of your people's way, finding the right people that are aligned with your mission, your values, your culture, and just getting out of their way, just letting them go. Don't micromanage them. Just, that has been an interesting evolution over the last couple of years to go from this multiplying force to a bottleneck.
Yeah. That's a tough thing, man. You're the person who loses sleep over this thing for so many years. And then for it to be like, grown, mature enough to be able to do that. It requires some mental reframing, no doubt.
I think with every evolution I've gone through as a business owner, I always arrive at the intellectual outcome before I arrive at the emotional. And it's always the emotional one holding me back because as the business owner who started this thing, right? It's your proverbial baby, right? Like you want to do everything and control everything and nurture it, right? And then you intellectually arrive at these conclusions to be like, this is not worth my time. There's, you know what I'm saying? Like this should be, I should let this go, or I need to let this go, or like, this isn't whatever, right? Like I can intellectually arrive at all of these conclusions. And then that thing comes up, right? And you just like immediately jump into it, even though you shouldn't, because you're like, oh, I can take care of this real quick. Right. And it's overcoming that last step, which is the emotional reconciliation of letting it go. Right. It's like, it's a work in progress.
So what are some of the things like tools, resources, if you don't mind, whatever you don't mind sharing? You mentioned you use a fractional CMO. I think the fractional stuff is really intriguing. It's probably about to and out of control with some of the fractional options that are out there, but fractional marketing, I think, has been really valuable. We've done that. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, are you using EOS?
Yeah, we run EOS.
Yeah. How long have you been doing that?
We did a self-implementation of EOS because I had rolled it out at other companies in 2018. So about a year into starting Woven, we did a self-implementation of it. And I would say we intentionally did not try to do a full, we were too small. I mean, EOS starts at like a $2 million and above kind of business size. That's even EOS says that's their low point.
Mm-hmm.
We were too small for it, but I wanted some structure. And so we rolled out like the L10, the rocks, the, some scorecard stuff. We didn't roll out all their tools, but we did a kind of a self implementation. And then last year in 2023, we re-rolled it out. So the team had grown. We now had department heads, and we were just hiring a bunch of people, and we had raised money. And like, so we did it with an implementer last year, and that was great. We rolled out, I think, almost all of it. I'm sure there's a tool or two in there. Maybe we didn't, but like full blown accountability chart, right? All down through, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was great for the team, right? Obviously transitionary, type stuff for a month or two, but the team loves it. Every department holds their L10 and the executive L10 every week. Like, I love it. So we went through a full year with an implementer. And then at the end of last year, we opted to, the executive team felt comfortable enough carrying it forward without the implementer. And we still are on track using the tools. We're doing quite well.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of how I would hope that it would work, is that you can phase out using an implementer. So like, what else do you have any other tools or frameworks or resources that you?
I mean, probably a lot. I don't know where to jump in or start. It all depends on what is the problem being solved, or like what's the activity. I would say right up there with EOS in terms of traction and Rocket Fuel and those books are great reads if you're not familiar with EOS or the whole model, right? Definitely worth the read, definitely worth checking out. But like the one thing that we probably most reliably augment EOS with is practices from the Ideal Team Player.
Yeah.
The Hungry, Humble, People Smart, right? Like when we go to hire, we use a combination of a culture index survey tool to align traits and skills of the job, to basically make sure that the person is naturally aligned with the type of work they're going to be doing, or the type of behavioral traits that they're going to have to exhibit in order to be successful at that role. And then we also look for hungry, humble, and people smart. That is, we still look at the GWC it for the accountability chart. They still got to sit in a seat. We still do that, but we definitely filter through the culture index and the other aspects before we get there. So if you haven't read the Ideal Team Player, great book, great concepts, simple, basic. That's one for sure.
Thank you so much for listening. If you found the show valuable, you can say thanks and show your support simply by taking a quick second to like, share, and comment on the show. You can also find more information about each of my guests, all of the resources from the show, and myself at nickberry.info/TBOJ.